Tonight's presentation, although edited for YouTube, contains imagery and subject matter some may find disturbing. While our program is educational, we still feel that viewer discretion is advised.
For a lot of people, animations here on YouTube sometimes is our introduction to horror as a whole. Back between 2006 and 2010, these animations were super prevalent, oftentimes making it to the front page of YouTube itself and becoming viral hits. But lately, we've been seeing a reduction in that as YouTube tries to disregard the horror community and actively make it hard for most of us content creators to make anything that isn't the most squeaky clean, family-friendly thing on the site. So today, I would like to celebrate that community and show you guys some more amazing content. Disturbing animations that don't just try to go boo and scare you, but rather are disturbing in the fact that it makes a commentary about life and society as a whole. Sometimes it can make you think twice and change your perspective on things. That's the amazing power of horror, and I hope that I'll be able to present that to you accurately today. But before I get into the actual video, I want to tell you about the fine folks at Amino who has offered me a new way to create more creepy content for you guys. With their new feature, Amino Stories, you can find a bunch of informative, creepy content that won't be affected by the demonetization bot prevalent here on YouTube. Click the link in the description or pinned in the comment section below, or just search Amino apps to download Amino. You can also find my stories by searching ThatCreepyReading under the user section and giving me a follow. I'll be posting new videos there, like this one about a man who claims that he could create rain by mixing chemicals and shooting it into the air. And one time when he predicted a storm, it killed 23 people. If you're more interested in hearing about that story, feel free to check that out. Also, I really do like the Paranormal Amino, which hosts quite a bit of fun stories just like this, so once you're done watching my content, there's a lot more for you to look at. With that said, please sit back, relax, turn down the lights, and prepare to be scared as I present 6 of the most disturbing animations on the internet. Operator is a stop-motion claymation series by Sam Barnett, who in the past made some impressive yet surreal animations. For example, we have Interaction, which was posted in 2006, which has this disturbing soundtrack and a biomechanical feel to it. There are a few experimental animations that keep up with that weird, uncomfortable vibe that was made popular by early creepypastas in the late 2000s. Some of these short films seems to be just him experimenting with abstract motion and sound design. And finally, we get his claymation stuff, which started with Am the Eggman, which I don't know what I'm looking at or how to describe it. Honestly, you would need to watch it for yourself, but it's certainly a creepy video. I just can't explain it. Wow. If you guys want to dissect it, it's up to you. Everything posted on his channel seems to be random experimentation, until we get to the Operator series, which begun in 2013. Operator is a web series that currently has 2 episodes out right now, with the 3rd one on the way, thanks to a successful Kickstarter. The first episode is very self-contained and ends in a satisfying manner. Basically, all that happens is a man clocks into work at his strange, futuristic, dystopian job. Then, while conducting his normal routine, something crawls out of this socket. While he would like to stop and report this, he is reminded that if he fails to keep schedule, he would be terminated. He tries to keep up, however, the monster trapped in a room with him is going to make that difficult. we get to see this man and what he's going through, how he's thinking, what he's thinking of, his family, the stress, the anxiety, the fear that he's being put through. Eventually, the creature takes control of him. The moment it does, he starts performing his job at a greater efficiency. This goes on for a while until the creature tries to throw out a picture of his family, which gives him the strength to take back control. He's finally able to leave that cramped, claustrophobic room, only to realize that the corporation he works for did this intentionally. His co-workers are all being controlled, and the animation ends like this.
Action protocol Eli approved. Proceed with cleanup. Employees at B5, G8, and L44 have avoided integration. Subject at L44 is fleeing toward them sector. Rhizomep system implementation complete. Report back to Alpha.
The operator preys upon claustrophobia, and more importantly, the fear of large corporations and how much you're giving into them. We've all worked a tedious, mind-numbing job that forces us to essentially watch the clock as we do our terrible repetitive tasks. That situation sometimes can make someone feel trapped and alone in their situation, and it really makes someone question how much of their lives are we giving to those that employ us. This fear of losing your life to an entity that does not have your best interest in heart continues in episode 2, which picks up from a different perspective and ends on a cliffhanger, which according to the trailer for Operator episode 3 should be continued in the next installment. And with how strong the first episode was and how amazing the second episode continues to be, I hope to see you all there with me for episode 3.
(2011's) The Blackwater Gospel by the Animation Workshop, directed by Beau Mathorn with lead animator Arthur Gill Larson, tells the story of a drought-ridden, dusty town in the middle of nowhere, USA. The gothic, atmospheric story concerns an entity known as the Undertaker, and well, no more real explanation needed on his part. The Blackwater Gospel begins pretty grimly with death and an analogue to the Grim Reaper being present from the very get-go. Then we get a look at the kind of town this animation is set in and the people who inhabit it. We have an abusive pastor who uses fear to keep people in line and listen to every venom-filled word he has. A happy-go-lucky handicapped man who plays foreboding music, and then the townspeople who all pretty much have the same attributes. These people are scared. They don't know any better and they've been put through the ringer, which keeps a thick tension between them and the pastor. The only other character to note is the Undertaker, who is this universe's embodiment of death. When the Undertaker arrives, the townspeople don't know what to do, so they turn to the religious leader, who takes this opportunity to rid himself of the only person in town that does not directly follow his authority, the homeless man. When the man is dead, the Undertaker remains, as if foreshadowing that more will die very soon. The townspeople hit a breaking point, turning them into violent, scared, irrational creatures. During this frenzy of death and gore, we see that the pastor's Bible was hollow and held a gun, showing that this man of faith was nothing more than a fraud, and it's only fitting that he is killed by the very thing he exploited to dominate the lives of these people. The animation ends with the Undertaker getting ready to do his job and bury the town of Blackwater. In this last shot, we see that the only man not tainted by fear was the homeless man, whose sacrifice started all of this. The Blackwater Gospel is an examination of dread, paranoia, authoritarianism, and also how belief can suit people when they need it to suit them, as opposed to being based in logic. Fear is a key theme. Fear the Lord, fear the Undertaker. Fear turns the townspeople into zombies. As soon as the Undertaker comes to town, the townsfolk flee the church, and later turn on each other like wolves. The pastor, who is the dominant leadership in the town, who has all the people under his spell through fear, uses the arrival of the Undertaker to rid him of the only person who wasn't under his spell. When that sacrifice does not make the Undertaker leave, the minister's spell is broken, and the situation descends into a bloodbath. Far from being a man who wants the best for his people, he instead is the kind of guy who has a gun and his Bible, and he ain't afraid to use it, experiencing the very fear he instilled in his people, who have now turned on him. The ironic part of the entire animation is that the Undertaker seems to be a natural part of this world. He does not seem to kill anyone or want anyone to die. He does a job only when other people end their lives through either natural or unnatural means. It is the people's fear of death that causes them to turn on each other, doing the work for him. And the minister's end, well, it's got the subtlety of a shotgun, but it works. The story isn't necessarily a criticism of religion, more of herd mentality, and the kind of ministries often ran by religious organizations like the IFNB, who try to use fear of the Lord to promote government-mandated death penalties, and Jehovah's Witnesses who hold an iron grip over their membership's social lives. It's a cautionary tale about who you should put your trust in, and that sometimes fear is just a natural part of life.
Who's Hungry is made by Storkeater on YouTube. According to his description, this would be his first film at Cal Arts, and he even seems to have interned at Pixar. His earlier animations include Prinja Ninses, which is cartoony yet also oddly gory, Bar Night, which Stork describes as a cheesy chalkboard animation, and his most recent work is a short film titled Higher Space, which seems to use stop motion and puppetry to create a fun story. Who's Hungry is possibly one of the most conceptually disturbing animations on this list, and it's one many of you likely have seen considering its 8.2 million views. I don't know why I need to say this, but putting children in danger in any context is inherently disturbing, and in this black and white gem, that's exactly what we get. The animation starts by giving us the same stranger danger situation taught in many schools. A strange man in an ice cream truck. The reason why this is more disturbing and pointed than those old PSAs is because it accurately depicts the gut feeling you get when something is wrong. The fear presented here is animated in a genuine way, and that moment of hesitation that a child might get is completely on point. Once the two kids are loaded into the truck, everything turns more surreal. For example, the children seem to be scaled way smaller than their captors, and the captor himself is given monster-like attributes, and practically towers over everything in the scene. Thankfully, the animation ends with the child predator being killed, and the children making it out okay. Listen, I don't need to beat around the bush here. It's obvious why something like this is disturbing to watch. People who prey upon the naivety of children are abundant, and with the internet, sometimes it's not the man in the ice cream truck. Sometimes it's the friendliest person on Discord, Facebook, or Twitter. We're not here to say what you can and can't do, but what I can say is that if something feels wrong, maybe consider getting a second opinion. And if someone honestly does not have your best interest at heart, then maybe consider if they're worth your time.
Known for his animations here on YouTube and Adult Swim, Jack Stauber is an independent musician who creates music videos with a mix of traditional animation, claymation, and live action to create visuals as distinct as his nostalgic pop sounds. Not all of these animations are paired with music, but each is uniquely provocative and unsettling. Some of the visual motifs which carry through these animations include distorted faces, Cronenberg body horror, and imagery associated with death and dying. Many of these shorts are also edited to seem like they're being projected from a worn-down VHS tape, or swap styles unexpectedly to trouble and shock the viewer. One of Jack Stauber's more popular music videos, Deadweight, utilizes this change in visual style during the song's chorus, where Jack opens his chest to reveal a muddled and choppy clay face performing the backup vocals. Dread is another feeling often conveyed through these surreal visuals. We see an example of this in Dinner Is Not Over, where two realistic tongues are repeatedly licking a tombstone, which then morphs into a lollipop, only to turn upside down and become a noose. Will is one of the most recent animations to be posted on Jack Stalber's channel, and it is absent of any music or speaking. Instead, it opens with an instant assault of cacophonous machinery and heavy breathing. This breathing is coming from a short, stubby man without any clothes. His limbs are twisted around and his hair is patchy and sparse. His wide eyes are in clear panic, and there's a sizable dent in the top of his head. The anxiety of this pitiable creature seems to be the focus of this animation, as he struggles to pull levers and flip switches to stop the sounds of mechanical whirling and harsh buzzing behind him. In the background, a timer is going berserk, and the gnashing teeth turn on in the shadows of the twisting gears and cogs. Escalating to hysterics, the creature reaches for the top of his head, only to find a great dent, which the audience has been privy to since the beginning, but this seems to surprise him as he reaches into his own mind. The noise suddenly dampening as his hands reach for a valve. The first thing he finds himself able to turn or manipulate in the slightest. After discovering that the only circumstances he can change in his life are in his own head, the creature is suddenly put at ease, even as the machine continues its clanging behind him. This animation is a direct examination of anxiety and irrational fear. Just like in real life, and people like me who struggle with anxiety disorder, there is no explanation for the onset of paralyzing trepidation. The constant alarms and resulting panic depict an internal struggle over an external situation which cannot be controlled. For better or for worse, the feeling of losing control over a stressful situation or not being able to have control when you suddenly begin to panic is deeply disturbing. Which is why us, and more specifically me, find Jack Stalber to be so unsettling, as it's able to use surreal imagery to convey a very real and disturbing problem.
The Sad Man stands out among the other animations on Jake Lava's channel, which all feature voice acting and a more obvious focus on comedy. Sketches like Meat Tree and I Can't Hear Myself Think contain the same style of gross-out horror visuals, but contrast them with a clear punchline, which makes the video seem like a dark joke that you're being invited to hesitantly laugh along with. The lack of dialogue in The Sad Man, along with Jake Lava's experimenting with a darker background design and a more subtle approach to humor, makes it unlike the rest of his animations, lending to the creepiness. The story of The Sad Man begins in the same way that it ends, with a masked creature in silent mourning over a scratched drawing on the wall, which will be important later. We quickly discover that one of the reasons this creature is so sad is because he dislikes himself and wants to hurt himself, doing so by tearing away his fingernails. The creature is also sad because he is lonely, having nobody to go on walks or play on the swing set with. Something is definitely wrong, given that all of the buildings seem to be abandoned, which creates a wistful feeling when paired with the animation's lonesome and droning soundtrack. Around halfway through the video, the Sad Man is able to overcome his loneliness when he meets a little girl in the ruins. She bandages the wound he had given himself, and they decide to stick together, running through the collapsed cityscapes and pushing one another on the swing set. They become so close that the Sad Man scratches a drawing of the pair into the wall of his home, which mirrors the same drawing we saw earlier, only without the girl having been etched out. This is a clear indicator of the girl's fate, and it isn't long before the music swells and she reaches out to pull the mask off the Sad Man. Her exact death is left to the imagination of the viewer, though this completes the Sad Man's cycle. and he returns to his home to mourn at the drawing, over and over ad infinitum. The foreshadowing of the drawing on the sad man's wall and the build-up to his unmasking creates serious tension, despite some of the animation's sillier moments. The telling of the story without any words is also an accomplishment, and creates an atmosphere that makes the viewer feel as isolated as the sad man. The idea that you could be alone forever because you can't stop yourself from hurting the people who try to get close is a horrifying prospect. And it's what makes the sad man so disturbing.
Lee Hardcastle is one of my favorite animators here on YouTube. His animations have even reached outside the confines of this platform, as he was hired by Adult Swim to do a few admittedly gory bumpers. He also does work for a larger corporation, such as Orion Pictures, as he made this disturbing advertisement for the new Child's Play movie that parodies Toy Story with a creepy claymation twist that he's well known for. His body of work extends to music videos and even back to the start of YouTube itself. When figures like Robert Benfer of Clay World fame were getting popular, Lee Hardcastle was doing his own, more disturbing stop-motion animation, like with The Evil Dead in 60 seconds, The Exorcist in 60 seconds, and Shaun of the Dead in 60 seconds. This eventually evolved into the Clay Cat series, which took random movies and made them star, you guessed it, cats killing each other in brutal ways. My favorite of this series would probably be Clay Cat The Raid, which is very entertaining, very well done, and oddly cinematic for a claymation film. Beyond that, his music videos are also top-notch, often parodying various horror tropes and ending in very brutal and grisly ways. He also has done a few series here on YouTube, such as Ghost Burger, which tones down the typical amount of gore you get and tells a story about a man who's running a struggling business and two boys who end up hunting ghosts and turning them into burgers. That seems to bring in a lot of people. Basically, it's a disturbing story about someone who got way too deep into debt and had to do anything to claw out of it.
Bollocks, bump, shit off, fucking off, big fucking cock. What? What are we gonna do now, lad?
Just don't stress. Think.
I'll show you stress. I'll sell that many burgers by the end of tonight. I'll belong in the Guinness World bloody record book. Just you watch.
At the end of this story, everyone's able to break even and get to a state of homeostasis, with only being able to make it out of this adventure okay. However, not without a cost. Then we get Hamster Hell, which is just disturbing. I can't even show most of it here, as it's just a spiral of disturbing visuals and concepts where absolutely nothing goes right. In the end, it leaves us with a message that animals are animals and kids can be cruel, especially if not raised by a proper parent. Go watch it for yourself if any of this sounds interesting. However, be warned, I put a huge disclaimer, as this is a very mature film, and if you have thin skin or a bleeding heart as I do, it might not be the best thing to look up. In the end, Lee Hardcastle is a hardworking animator on this platform, and his work spans back over a decade. His content is disturbing, as he holds nothing sacred in what he would talk about, and when it comes to Lee's work, not only are the visuals shocking, but the stories never end well. At best, all you can do is break even. Wow, it looks like you made it to the end of the video. I would like to say I really appreciate you making it here, and furthermore, I really appreciate all the people on Patreon that make these videos possible. Thanks to these guys, I'm actually able to afford like stock footage and some better assets for the channel itself. And with that, I got a few announcements I'd like to make. Number one, I would like to let you guys know that I will be at VidCon 2019. So if you don't mind, give me a follow on Twitter. I'll be posting updates on where I'm at, and if you guys want to do meetup or something like that, feel free to @me, to message me in DMs, whatever. I'll be at VidCon saying hi to all you guys and hanging out with a few friends such as Blame It On George, Daft Pina, and Let's Read. This video also would not be possible without That Chapter, who took a lot of time in helping me write this and narrate it and bring it to life. So if you'd like to check out his content, you can find him linked in the end card. I also would like to thank Mr. Creepypasta, who lended his voice last minute after one of my other narrators dropped out. I really do want to iterate that I really do appreciate every view, every comment. I go through those all the time, and just seeing you guys message me, especially about the Night in the Woods video, really does make my day. So if you made it this far, thank you. And furthermore, no matter how bad or stressful life gets, understand that if you just keep moving forward, eventually you get better. See you next time, and I hope you guys have a good one.